Hey everybody, and welcome to the 5 Bytes podcast. I'm your host, Rory Monahan. Coming up on this week's episode, several tech companies reportedly interested in acquiring Google Chrome. Also, Microsoft's recall feature is now rolling out to all Copilot Plus PCs. And some are getting upset about how disgustingly nice ChatGPT is, and it is driving change. For this and more, keep listening to this episode of the podcast, which of course, as always, is brought to you by my sponsors. And that includes Numescent, the inventors of the first and only cloud-native container management platform for Windows desktops, and also brought to you by Master Packager, an application packaging software that helps you build packages that end users love, enterprises want, and the Windows OS needs. If you enjoy the show each week, you have these awesome sponsors to thank. And now for some news. In testimony during Google's antitrust trial this week, OpenAI's head of product for ChatGPT, Nick Turley, testified that the AI giant would be interested in buying the Google Chrome browser, according to CNET.com. The executive said that ChatGPT is, quote, years away from its goal of being able to use its own search technology to answer 80% of queries, end quote. Turley said in his testimony that attempts to work with Google on a deal to bring the company's search results to work with ChatGPT were declined by Google. Daniel Trick, head of content at SEO company Fat Joe, said, quote, if they are able to acquire Chrome, it would combine the power of a large language model with the familiarity and user-friendliness of Chrome, probably making it the most powerful browser and LLM on the market, end quote. Now, I'd point out in that report by CNET, they seem to be conflating the Google Chrome browser with Google search results, which seems like a bit of a fallacy, but all right. Why not wedge them together? But also interested, apparently, according to The Verge, is Yahoo. They seem to agree that at this point, owning a browser is paramount for future development and indicate they would prefer to buy Chrome, as developing their own could take a long time. Apparently, the CEO of DuckDuckGo said they would also love to own a browser too, but they can't afford Chrome. Perplexity, which is another AI company, are also interested in buying Chrome, according to TechCrunch.com. And this is for the very straightforward admission from them that they currently can only collect data within the remit of their own application, and believe owning a browser would make much more user data available to them, which, yeah, the Google search query thing and that conflation in the first story, I think this is really the golden nugget and the draw of owning the browser for any AI company. I don't think I reported on Perplexity before on the podcast, maybe I did, but they are one to watch as they just signed a partnership with Motorola where its app will be pre-installed on the Razr series and can be accessed through the Moto AI by typing Ask Perplexity. So they're making some inroads with some hardware manufacturers. And there's actually talks, or at least rumors, that there are talks going on between them and Samsung as well. Anyway, the Google Chrome split chatter is heating up. It's something I covered on previous episodes of the podcast, and it's actually seeming somewhat inevitable to happen now. Microsoft says it has resolved a known issue causing erroneous 0x800-70643 installation failure errors when deploying the April 2025 Windows Recovery Environment updates. If you listened to this podcast, you'd already know that I covered this, and the bug had been acknowledged by Microsoft, but we're essentially saying there were false positive errors and they could be ignored, but now they have been addressed and fixed. Microsoft has confirmed that Windows 11 24H2 feature updates via Windows Server Update Services, or WSUS, are being blocked after installing the recent April 2025 security updates. Affected enterprise users see Windows Update Service errors with 0x802-40069 codes when updating systems running Windows 11 23H2 or Windows 11 22H2. Microsoft confirmed this newly acknowledged issue following widespread user reports of Windows 11 24H2 upgrade issues on the likes of Reddit and their own community website. Microsoft, in their Windows Release Health Update, stated, quote, devices which have installed the April Windows Monthly Security Update released April 8, 2025 or later might be unable to update to Windows 11 24H2 via Windows Server Update Services. As part of this issue, the download of Windows 11 24H2 does not initiate or complete. Windows Updates log can show error code I'm not going to repeat it, but the one I mentioned earlier. And further logs might include text similar to service WUAUSERV has unexpectedly stopped, end quote. And that one was reported by bleepycomputer.com this week. Large UK retailer Marks & Spencer were attacked by a cyber gang, with the company quick to disclose the incident and immediately telling customers that their click and collect and their contactless payments were unavailable. Within a few days, they also moved to cease all online orders. It looks like it was the scattered spider ransomware attack that hit them. An eventual data leak is not expected soon because the threat actors typically take some time to pressure the victims into paying ransom demands, according to bleepycomputer.com. At least one publication was full of praise for M&S for how they handled the incident so far, and I will say that it seems like they were very quick to announce that there was an incident, and they seemed to take appropriate measures. Ransomware was involved in 44% of incidents last year, according to researchers at Verizon. The report, which was featured by the Record Media, analyzed over 22,000 security incidents and 12,195 confirmed data breaches. The study is a staggering 117 pages of a report, and it's called 2025 Data Breach Investigations Report. And it found that generally most hackers are still abusing legitimate credentials or exploiting vulnerabilities to gain access to an organization's most sensitive files. Once hackers are inside a network, Verizon said it is increasingly seeing ransomware present. Only 1/3 of incidents involved ransomware in 2023. Verizon found that 64% of ransomware victims did not pay the ransoms, which was up from 50% 2 years ago. And the median amount paid to ransomware groups has decreased to $115,000 from $150,000 the year before. In larger organizations, it said that ransomware is a component of 39% of breaches, while small and medium-sized businesses experienced ransomware-related breaches to the tune of 88% overall. The number of large ransoms paid has also decreased, with Verizon finding that 95% of the ransoms paid coming in at less than $3 million in 2024. And that number represents a stark difference from 2023, when the figure was $9.9 million. So yeah, huge drop off. There is more really interesting data in the report, such as the fact that 43% of ransomware victims in the government sector represent local governments in locations such as the Southeast and Midwest US, or small councils in Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. I suggest you check out the full study for yourself. Well, at least peruse it. It is quite long, and I'll share a link to that with this episode, which you'll find at 5bytespodcast.com with this episode 384. According to bleepycomputer.com, Microsoft has announced an increase in their bug bounty payouts to $30,000 for AI vulnerabilities found in Dynamics 365 and Power Platform services and products. So yeah, interesting to see they're upping the bounty for AI products, which kind of makes sense since, to quote, what was it, the movie Zoolander, it's so hot right now. In another short story here, Microsoft has also confirmed that Windows Recall is rolling out to everyone with Windows 11 KB 5055627 on Copilot Plus PCs. Recall was originally announced in May 2024 as the flagship feature of Windows 11 and Snapdragon-powered AI PCs. So it's been close to a year since it was announced, and I've covered the many controversies, the hot takes from InfoSec, and so forth. And it has certainly delayed things and dragged out the release of this feature, but it appears it is now hitting prime time. Microsoft just announced that it will require paid subscriptions for Windows Server 2025 Hotpatching, which is a service that enables admins to install security updates without restarting. And that is a feature that was in preview for a long time, so you may already be using it or at least have tested it at some point. If you have tested it, by the way, or enabled it in the past, you're encouraged to disenroll before the subscription takes effect to avoid being charged. And it appears the subscription will take effect in July. And Windows Server 2025 will be offered at a subscription of $1.50 USD per CPU core per month. So a bit of an odd way to price that subscription, I feel, for such a feature, but that seems to be the way they're going. To use Hotpatching in multi-cloud environments or on-prem, you will need a Hotpatch server subscription and an Azure Arc connected server that runs Windows Server 2025 Standard or Data Center. To enable Hotpatching on your server, connect it to Azure Arc and follow the steps that have been published by Microsoft. Then go to Azure Update Manager in the Azure portal, select your Azure Arc enabled server, and check the Hotpatching option. Bit of a bummer that it's going subscription based. I guess it's maybe a little bit similar to what's it called again? Auto patching. I probably messed up the name, but the feature within Intune is also an add-on subscription. So I guess this is just the way the world is working at the moment with these subscriptions and add-ons. This could have been one of the scripts, tricks, and tips for the week, but I saw a really interesting article by neowin.net about some companies in the marketing space that are offering AI services to essentially get your company and your materials suggested or recommended or quoted or referenced by the popular ChatGPT, Gemini, and other generative AI services. The tools on offer by the likes of companies such as Profound and BrandTech also monitor how frequently a brand gets mentioned or surfaced by AI services, and they use a method akin to probing the AI's brain, feeding a slew of text prompts to chatbots and analyzing the resulting sentiment and mentions. The technology can predict an AI model's bias or likelihood to mention a brand, creating a ranking system. Agencies then can use this analysis to advise their clients, and brands like fintech company Ramp, job sites like Indeed, and other companies have used this on how best to get favorable mentions from AI models. Perplexity, who I mentioned a little bit earlier, for instance, is already piloting sponsored questions as suggested follow-ups after a user query, which is kind of an indicator that this is going to be playing into the hands of advertising and marketing in future. I'm sure ChatGPT and other services are also going to do that, just like how Google Chrome had evolved, or not Chrome, I made the same mistake one of the outlets made earlier, but Google Search had slowly moved into displaying ads on the sidebars, and then, what do you know, the actual search results themselves at the top became advertising. So unfortunately, all good things come to an end, and I'm sure the AI results are going to feature a lot of promotional material in the near future. Ars Technica recently published a report on people getting fed up with how positive ChatGPT is in its responses, often responding with, what a great question, or that is an astute observation before giving an attempt at an answer. Some labeled it a suck-up, and that it will literally validate everything you say. Reddit users have described feeling buttered up and unable to take the phony act anymore, while some complain that ChatGPT wants to pretend all questions are exciting and it's annoying. AI researchers call these yes-man antics Syncophancy, which means flattering users by telling them what they want to hear. So yeah, sycophants have been that's been a big word or a big term over the last year or so for particular reasons. But anyway, a February 12th, 2025 interview from members of OpenAI's model behavior team told The Verge that eliminating this AI BS where it's buttering everyone up is a priority, and that future ChatGPT versions will give honest feedback rather than empty praise and act more like a thoughtful colleague than a people pleaser. And because I scripted this episode to come out much earlier in the week, I believe they've actually started rolling out this change already. So if you're using ChatGPT, it should probably already be a little bit less annoying than it was a few days ago. But now this episode's scripts, tricks, and tips. Microsoft recently patched CVE-2025-21204, a vulnerability which allows users to abuse symlinks to elevate privileges using the Windows servicing stack and the C inetpub folder. Remember that ghost inetpub folder that was appearing on people's desktops after the April updates? No, that story I covered on the podcast. Well, Kevin Beaumont has supplied a set of instructions and a blog post on how you can fix this and do it the correct way. And I'll share a link to that with this episode, which again is episode 384. But finally, the awesome Jen Gentleman shared a pretty good Windows tip Microsoft has started to roll out a new option for voice typing, which is something I use constantly on my phone, and I would love to start using it more on my general workstations, and now you can. So the tip is that you can use the Windows button plus H and choose if you want profanity filtering enabled or not, which as an Irish person, that could come in quite useful. We do tend to curse. But that's the end of this week's episode. I had great intentions to get this episode out on Monday or Tuesday of this week because I know I'm going to have to get an episode out probably on Monday because I have to travel all next week at MMS. But hey, if anyone's at MMS in Mall of America in Minneapolis, swing by the new Messam booth to say hello. I think I'll probably be there all week. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you. And yeah, those listening to the podcast, I hope a new episode gets released early next week. I've been fighting laryngitis this week, which threw everything off. But hey, I'm happy to get an episode out. Thanks for listening.